Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Chronic Yet Undefeated podcast. It's your host here, Kaylin, and thank you for tuning in today. I'm going to be honest here. Today, I'm not feeling all that great. I have that type of brain fog that doesn't want to go away no matter what I do. You ever feel that way? It's awful. I've had a lot of days these past 2 weeks that I haven't felt good. I don't know if it's all that pollen out there or what. Is anyone else out there suffering with allergies right now, or is it just me? Either way, I'm glad to be able to record a podcast this week while I have a few moments here. I'm also glad that I started writing this idea before I published my last podcast, so I had something to work off of for this week. We're going to discuss one of the emotionally painful aspects of having a chronic illness, and that is losing friendships. I'm thinking a lot of us out there have experienced this. It might have been that friend that was truly there until somehow they weren't. We might have had a flare-up in front of this friend and they felt embarrassed to the point of ignoring us forever. It could have been that one seemingly loyal friend that stood up one day and said, "I'm done with you making my life inconvenient." Other times it might not be our chronic illness at all, but one day they up and ghost us, and many times we may be left assuming it was because we were sick so often or that our symptoms were embarrassing. There are a couple stories of my own that come to mind when I'm thinking about the true hurt of losing a friendship. I can recall back in high school when most people want to make friends their freshman year, right? It's nice to have familiar faces around to avoid feeling lonely. I wanted someone to spend lunchtime with or buddy up with for group projects in class. I wasn't outgoing by any means, but company was nice. The first friend I made on my own during my freshman year without being introduced through someone else was a girl that we'll call Meg. Now, Meg seemed so amazing to me. My initial impression of her was that she was polite, caring, and fun. We'd hang out at lunch and she'd introduce me to her friends. We shared our interests and we'd just chat. That was until a day came in which I felt horrible at school all day long. When I started the day, I was feeling so nauseated. In class, I was trying so hard not to gag, but there were times I knew that it was clearly audible and it was a choking type of sound. From what I remember, no teacher I had that day asked me, "Are you okay?" or "Do you need to go to the nurse?" Not that I could give a good answer, even if I were asked, because of how foggy my mind was. It's possible if students asked if I was okay, but I don't fully remember if anyone did, or if all they could do was stare as I interrupted the lesson of the day. By the time I reached my fifth and longest class of that day, I was still gagging and feeling nauseated. I felt like I was in a dream, and I'm not sure how I managed to navigate to every correct class that day. That in itself was a miracle. I thought about rushing out to the bathroom during my fifth hour class, but I felt too shy and I didn't know if I would make it or spill my guts before I reached the classroom door to leave. At the same time, I'm also grateful to God that I never rushed to the bathroom alone. There would have been a good chance that I would have thrown up and had a seizure alone in the school bathroom. That could have been the end for me if I drowned in the toilet or smacked my head on the toilet, tile floor, or stall doors. It was all a hazard for a bad fall in there. After class, Meg caught up with me and she said, "Hey, are you going to be okay?" I lied and said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I think I just need to eat something." Together, we headed for the cafeteria. One of Meg's friends begged someone to go to the nacho line with her. I had never gone to the nacho line, but at least I wouldn't be so alone, and I agreed. When we were in line, I followed suit. After I ate some nachos, I felt all better. The nausea was gone, the gagging went away. I thought, wow, what a relief. I feel better, finally. We all went to hang out in the main area outside of the lunchroom. We stood around talking to each other. I didn't contribute much to the conversation, and then the nausea crept in again. This time it was far worse than before, which I wouldn't have thought possible. I couldn't hold back the gagging, and out of pure reaction, I tried to cover my mouth, but that didn't help anything. I drew my hands away from my mouth, and vomit was dripping off my hands onto the floor. I didn't even know where to start redeeming myself here. It was so embarrassing. Meg took a slight step forward as much as she could and said, "Kaylin, are you okay?" Baffled, I kept staring at my palms and just all I could utter was, yeah. I woke up on a blanket on the floor in the nurse's office behind a privacy shade, and I was in that area all by myself. There was no one sitting there to watch me like my mom would have done. If I stopped breathing, would the school nurse have even known? My head was absolutely throbbing, and the tile floor was unforgiving. I wish I had a soft pillow in that moment. Trying to sit up felt like it took the last ounce of energy I had, and my head hurt so bad that I had to lay back down. Turning my head to the side was like smelling straight out of a bag of rotten garbage without a way to escape it. I wondered what time it was because of the silence in the room. I wondered if everyone had gone home for the day and forgot about me. I'm not sure how long I laid there, exhausted and awake, yet slightly confused, for before one of the nurses popped around the divider and said, "Oh, she's awake now," then kind of left again. I wanted help up. I couldn't do it myself. I wanted a shower, but that wasn't in the cards for a while. I smelled awful with vomit all over my hair and clothes. I began thinking about what I was doing before I landed myself in the nurse's office. I was talking to Meg and her friends. I thought, oh man, I feel like such an idiot. Meg seemed so worried, and a few of the others seemed disgusted. I remember tiny moments I must have opened my eyes when I was being placed on that blanket and quickly dragged into the nurse's office. Those moments were so brief that I only remembered them a little bit after I woke up. Then I get to thinking how many other kids saw that and worried that I might get made fun of. When Mom arrived, I was wheeled in a wheelchair to the car, and my mom told me how blessed I was that I didn't hit my head on the tile floor when I fell. My backpack was apparently so full of books that day that it put my head above the tile. At first, I couldn't let those words sink in because this whole situation was bad enough. Surely there was no good that could come from it. Looking back on it, Mom was right. I could have ended up with a traumatic brain injury on top of it all, and I'm glad that didn't happen. I normally didn't have all my books on me, but I couldn't remember my locker combination that day to put them away, so I carried the heavy backpack all day long. I'm thankful that God was able to use that for something good. I did recover, and when I returned back to school, Meg wouldn't talk to me. She wouldn't engage in conversation. I felt basically invisible. The first friendship I made in high school, and I looked up so highly to her as she was incredibly smart and did really well in school. I wanted to be more like her. When it became the unsaid rule that we weren't talking anymore, I ate lunch by myself. Apparently, I had damaged their reputations or something. I had never fully understood the reason, but it must have been because of the seizure I had that day. Other people have the convenience of walking away when chronic illness beats us up, but we can't escape it. We have to deal not only with our illness, but how others react to us as well, and sometimes that hurts. There are friends that will decide we're too much of an issue and that they shouldn't have to deal with our problems and walk away without ever saying a word. For someone like me, though, I grieved over it. It was hard going to science class and not talking to her anymore. It was hard going to lunch alone and hoping to find someone to sit with. I remember this upperclassman, and she was this gothic girl, and she invited me to lunch once. I was frankly surprised as she jokingly picked on me, the quiet freshman, but it was nice that time, just that one time, not to have to be alone, even during that one lunch hour. I wasn't sure if I had even found a table to go to each time at lunch with others that school year. I felt pretty abandoned and didn't know many others there. Time moved on, but I was bitter about that freshman year for a long time, and it made it difficult to trust telling people about my medical condition, and I feared rejection. I tried my best to hide it, which may not have been the best habit at times. What I can say that I've learned is that not everyone will accept you, and rejection does hurt. But there are times you're better off without people like that in your life. You're better off not being friends with someone that secretly dislikes you than someone that truly cares. You're better off with someone that enjoys being around you rather than someone who only likes you when you're as well as they are. You're better off being with someone that cares for you deeply and is not ashamed of you. Do you want to know who was familiar with rejection? Jesus Christ. He was so familiar with rejection on a massive scale. In Matthew 26, he found his disciples sleeping instead of praying when he was in a deep time of need. And I'm sure that didn't feel incredibly supportive at that time. Also, Isaiah 52:3 tells us this about Jesus. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. To be rejected by mankind would be an awfully dark and hopeless feeling. We often fear rejection from that one person we truly care about, yet Jesus truly cared about us all and was rejected by many. Sometimes we say no one else understands feelings such as rejection and betrayal, or no one else could possibly know what it's like to feel this amount of physical pain. Jesus Christ understands. He understands what it's like to lack support when suffering. You're not alone in this battle. God is there with you this whole time. We don't all experience a miraculous healing in this life, but believers will be healed, whether it's here on earth or when we get to heaven one day. It'll happen. I wish that everyone knew that their worth isn't always defined by what they do. God already sees us with value. Matthew 10:29-30 tells us, "Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care, and even the very hairs of your head are numbered. So don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows." Our value isn't tied to everything we do, how much energy we have, or our health. God's love for you is constant, and how amazing that is to think that someone as powerful as God cares about us as people who still have flaws, that still forget things, and aren't always able to do everything. God sees your lack of energy and persistent exhaustion. He knows your limits, and whatever you aren't able to do, God is going to step in and do what you can't. 2 Corinthians 12:9 reminds us, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." You might be thinking, okay, I hear you with God, but what about the other people? The thing is that God can bring newer and deeper connections with others your way. You might think it's impossible right now, and I sure used to think it was impossible. I thought I was destined to be alone to suffer, but that wasn't God's plan. Sometimes painfully losing friendships is only making room for newer, more supportive friendships. Think about that for a moment. Losing a friend that might not have been a good fit in your life in the long run introduced someone that you love being around. God knew it wasn't good for people to be alone, and the science today still proves that. We need connections, so don't give up. There are still good ones out there, people that focus their everything on being kind to others, and that doesn't mean that they can't mess up, but that their heart is constantly focused in the right place. God is going to be sure that He's walking with you through your seasons of illness, no matter how long it lasts. That can include bringing people into your life that make it worthwhile. There is still hope and purpose for you that lies ahead. Even when we lose a valuable friendship, God is still working on our story. Romans 8:28 says, "In all things God works for the good of those who love Him." Your purpose wasn't erased the day you became chronically ill. Let me be very clear on that. So many people get that dreaded diagnosis and resort to the negative, "my life is over," when we're feeling hopeless because we had to give up more than most people had to, like careers, a driver's license, finishing college, or perhaps even the ability to have children. But God still has a purpose for you. Don't ever forget that. I remember seeing a post on social media that says, "Thank God for all the things that didn't happen." And it really got me thinking. I was thankful to God that I didn't rush to the bathroom at school that day and have a seizure alone. I was thankful that I didn't die during any one of the 3 near-death close calls that I've had. I'm glad that I didn't fall down the stairs at school during one of my bad days. Too many times we blame God for bad things happening, but we don't always thank Him for the bad things that didn't happen to us. It's a unique perspective, and I really think it challenges what it means to truly be grateful for what we have. Have you ever had that one friendship that you lost due to chronic illness? Have you since had newer connections pop up in your life that you're grateful for? Do you have hope to share for those still waiting for those better friendships to show up in their life? Tell us all about it in the comments. If you heard something that resonated with you today, hit the like button. And if you don't want to miss the next podcast, tap the subscribe button. Thank you for tuning in to the Chronic Yet Undefeated podcast.